The integration of hope is fueled by the promise of opportunity. It provides us all with a vehicle of aspiration and attainment to aspire to. Now I want to bring your attention to the number 6.5 million. Because you see, that's the number of people within the United States who have been clinically diagnosed with an intellectual or developmental disability, according to my friends over at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Providing them with the dignity of human worth and appreciation is a basic right that anyone should be afforded. At Oklahoma Human Services, they've got one mission in mind. They're committed to promoting the safety, independence, and well-being of all Oklahomans. They've also made a concerted effort to bring to the forefront the needs of citizens with intellectual and developmental disabilities from an employment and lifestyle standpoint, providing Oklahomans with disabilities a chance to be fully integrated in all aspects of life. And it starts by helping them get more money in their paychecks and a sense of independence and purpose as well. In this regard, they're intensely focused on empowering Oklahomans who live with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities to reach the fullest heights of their own potential. And my friend Ryan Stewart serves as the department's manager of communications, and he joined me this week to have an in-depth discussion on the progress being made within the department from a developmental disability standpoint and how they're laying the groundwork for an inclusive future for those living with a disability in Oklahoma, while also giving them a prosperous employment outlook. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. My friend, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, my friend, and I'm super excited to talk to you about developmental disability and employment services through the state of Oklahoma. Great to see you this afternoon, and thank you so very much for being here, my friend.
I'm happy to be here, and it's great to see you again.
Absolutely. Now, my friend, as you know, the field of developmental disability services is going through a bit of a transition from a holistic and broader standpoint. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by asking you, how important is it, do you think, that we embrace change as the sector goes through a transition, and what are the keys to communicating that effectively?
That's a great question. Well, they say one of the only things you can really count on is life is in life is change, or that change is constant, and that really is true. But the challenge is to embrace that change and to make the most, because change often fosters growth, which fosters improvement. And we're seeing this in how DD services are delivered. There's a national shift in the way services are designed and delivered, and change is really needed to foster this growth. So whether that be through the growth and development of programs like self-directed services, where families have more hands-on control over who they employ and how those services are delivered, or whether it be leaning into technology to increase independence in the home through enabling tech and remote supports, A modernized service system really needs to be designed around what the individual wants, and that's really at the heart of it. And this change needs to be embraced as needs and circumstances change. So I guess in the DD space, we'll always be growing and evolving, and we need to embrace that as a good thing. And I think Oklahoma is doing a good job stepping forward as a kind of a national leader in some of these areas. And change has been central to what we've been able to do. And I think it will be continuing moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Ryan, I'm curious to ask you, how do you think that these changes will make the delivery of these services and communicating them a little bit more effective and efficient, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I think communication is key. I think it can be incredibly overwhelming and confusing for people when there's change, and we really need to do a good job of boiling it down and understanding what it is that people need. Modernized services at their core should be designed around what the individual wants and needs, not what the agency thinks they need. So I really think that's the key to the change in making the delivery better and more efficient, is making it person-centered.
Yeah, absolutely. And it provides more autonomy, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely no. Right, I'm curious to ask you about the overall mission of the department. I know it's all about providing equity and inequality and providing independence to Oklahomans to make their own decisions, my friend. So tell me about the mission of the department, because I know it's a holistic and people-centered approach, isn't it?
It absolutely is. I think what you just said is a pretty great synopsis of the overall goal of where I work at Oklahoma Human Services. It's one of the state's largest employers. We serve more than 1 million people in our state every year, or roughly 1 in every 4 Oklahomans. These services cover a wide range, including food assistance, child support, child care, reporting abuse and neglect, supporting aging Oklahomans, caretaker needs, among others. Essentially, if there's an Oklahoman in need, our goal is to have a service that can help, or have a community partner who can provide the services they need. It takes all of us working together to help vulnerable Oklahomans. And where I work more specifically in Developmental Disability Services, or DDS, we serve individuals ages 3 and up who have a primary diagnosis of intellectual disabilities. And people served can have other developmental disabilities as well, in addition to intellectual disabilities such as autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome. Our goal is to meet the needs of these families, whether it be helping pay for direct support professionals to assist them with day-to-day life, providing in-person support, or it can be things like wheelchair ramps or widened doorways to help make a home safer and more accessible, and employment opportunities and community access. Whatever the goal is for that person and the goal for that family, we want to help them achieve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point, Ryan, I'm curious to ask you about how you would define fostering a culture of independence and what that means to you personally and the work that you do and the department as a whole. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, when it comes to serving people with developmental disabilities, like you mentioned, our goal is to help families lead safer, healthier, more independent and productive lives. And that's absolutely our goal. And there was a kind of monumental moment in our recent history that fundamentally changed our ability to make that a reality for Oklahomans who need DDS services. In May 2022, there were over 5,000 families awaiting services in Oklahoma, which is a very large number. But the state legislature kind of took a plan that DDS presented to them to help Oklahomans that was very structured and well thought out. And they believed in us and appropriated $32.5 million to end the wait list and increase provider rates. So that launched a starting point, and DDS applications were divided into different groups or cohorts based on when they joined the wait list. And some families had been waiting more than a decade. And we started processing that. It takes 6 to 9 months to transition somebody off the wait list and onto services. So this process can take some time, and we're still working with it. But in just a short amount of time, in the past 2 years, we've worked with each of these 7 cohorts now. And about half of that 5,000 list is approved for services are already receiving them, which is consistent with historical averages. So kind of throughout this waitlist elimination initiative, the goal isn't simply just to move everyone onto services, but also kind of what we discussed is to make sure that those services are the best and most modern services available and meet their unique needs. And that's kind of why it takes 6 to 9 months for a family to come on to services, is because each plan is individualized for that person. So we've talked a lot internally about the tools we need to build a better future where every individual has the opportunity to thrive. And I think we're right on pace and things are going really well and we're staying consistent with our mission moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ryan, as you know, May is, as we come to the tail end of it, buddy, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know that the department is really cognizant on supporting the mental health needs of their frontline workers, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I've never worked for a more supportive place. Like Oklahoma Human Services is, they really, it's not just about serving Oklahomans who need us. They really care about people. And I see that. I've worked a number of places. I've never worked anywhere like it that cares more about you as a person and supporting you. So I think mental health it's obviously a huge issue nationally, but I think we're doing a really, really strong job where I work.
Yeah, absolutely, my friend. And I know that we got a chance to meet in person, buddy, about a week and a half ago because the department has really put a focus on providing employment resources for folks with developmental and intellectual disabilities. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about their commitment from an employment standpoint, because like I always say, people with disabilities have to pay taxes too, right?
That's right. So Oklahoma became an employment first state in 2015, which essentially means that the goal is for all people, regardless of disability, should have every opportunity available for community integrated employment. And that's been a big focus since then, and one where we've really succeeded. Some examples of community integrated employment would be working at a pharmacy, a beauty shop, janitorial work, coffee shops, event companies. We have people who work at airports. And actually, Oklahoma is one of the top 2 states nationally in community integrated employment, along with the state of Washington. And we have a very high percentage of individuals working in community-based employment, around 67%, according to our most recent data. And all of this employment is individualized. People are not placed in any old job. It's tailored to their interests and needs, and their individual team, their IP team that works with them, strives to find an ideal work environment for them. So the number one goal for employment in Oklahoma is to continue this effort, but we want to get to a place where individuals are seen as viable members of the workforce and given every opportunity to pursue their own employment goals and dreams.
Yeah, and to that point, buddy, we had a chance to meet at your statewide training event, buddy, Empowerment Through Employment, Breaking Barriers, the statewide training event, buddy, and I'm curious about the takeaways that you took away from the event, my friend.
Well, my first takeaway is that you were my favorite presenter at that event, and so I'm honored to be here with you today. But I've honestly never seen employment presented better, and there were more than 1,000 people there in attendance to take that message home and to deliver it to their teams, their staff, advocates, families. We really got to see what employment first looks like in a unique way, seeing inclusion and a person-centered approach through a number of kind of diverse and personal examples. From we saw making custom dress socks to coffee barista to setting up weddings and other events. It was just cool to see people on stage sharing that they're getting to do what they love to do. I've just never seen it presented in a more innovative or real way. And these tangible examples from people who achieved success and overcame obstacles and challenges. For audience members like myself, even though many of us work in this space, I feel that it personally offered me a new perspective on how important employment opportunities are, how creative we can be in making these a reality, and how it can open doors for others.
Yeah, and my friend, I'm curious to ask you your definition of fully integrated or inclusive employment, and what's your definition of inclusion in this sense, my friend?
It's a great question. I think it's that to me, each person has a story, each person has a goal, and each person's unique. My job and kind of my role with DDS is I need to be looking for those stories and helping identify those stories to ensure that people feel seen, heard, and understood. And I think a lot of that comes through in employment. And to me, inclusion really is creating an environment, whether that be in an employment setting where individuals of all backgrounds uh, and abilities are valued, respected, and given equal opportunities. It's really important to me that I can do what I help to provide information and resources to fulfill DDS's mission to help others achieve this. And inclusion is a core tenet in achieving this goal, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the lead communications manager for the department, Ryan, I'm also curious to get your message to employers about the competitive advantage that comes along with hiring folks with disabilities. Why do you think they should make it a priority?
I think it really should be prioritized because every story that I've seen, every person that I've talked to, it's a success. I think there there's a loyalty that comes from it. There's a sense of purpose that comes from it that just really shines. And I think just working in this DDS space and the employment settings that I've seen and these opportunities that I've been presented, there's such a joy that comes from it that I think employers really need to lean into. Well, also there's a national workforce crisis. There is too, and people with developmental disabilities are a viable and overlooked working population that does great work and really helps strengthen businesses and communities. So I think it's an untapped resource full of people who can do a great job and would really appreciate the opportunity.
And they also provide different ways to innovate, don't they?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's a challenge employers need to be looking at too, is how they can support individuals with these opportunities and how it can grow and strengthen their business.
Yeah, and from the front lines of your communications role, Ryan, I'm curious, what strategic goals do you think the state still needs to advocate for as they continue to fight for the safety, independence, and full integration of the people you serve statewide there in Oklahoma? What sort of work still needs to be done, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think well, that's a great question. I'll think on that for a second. Um, I think just you're talking about kind of basic human dignity and how we can advance life for all people in Oklahoma. I think it's key that we meet people where they are. I think many people come to us in a crisis situation, and our dedicated staff work very hard to help in these situations. But our goal is to advance and improve in this to be for us to be available to families before there's a crisis at all, and we're getting them the help they need before they need it. This wasn't always the case for DDS, unfortunately, but we have the resources now. And the key is to turn that goal into a reality. And I see dedicated, hardworking people that side by side with me every day that are dedicated to this. And an additional layer to that part is coming back to a person-centered approach and ensuring that not only are we helping these people, but that we're doing it in a unique and tailored way and listening to what's important to them, not what we think is important for them. And I think those are areas where we continue to improve every day.
Yeah, and you know what? I just want to quickly go back to something you said earlier about wait lists, and I'll tell you that you met one of the people who worked for me through a personal support capacity when I was in Oklahoma. And,
Yeah.
when before I got funding from the government to hire personal support workers to work for me, I was on the waiting list for government services for 6.5 years. So I can emphasize for those that are still on the waiting list. And I'm just curious to get your message of sort of encouragement or inspiration to parents who are waiting for services or for adults as well. What would you tell them in the interim while they're waiting for services? Because it can be an emotional process, can't it?
It absolutely can. I think the first thing that I would say is help is on the way. It is coming. Oklahoma is finally in a position where we have a lot of catch up work to do, but that progress is being made. And I would encourage families who are in Oklahoma or who are not in Oklahoma too, but in states that are making positive changes to reach out. Like, I think a huge challenge for us has been locating families who have moved or changed phone numbers or changed email addresses, and we don't have their most up-to-date contact information. We've exhausted every resource to try to find these, but we would really love for families to reach out to us so that we can get them the help that they need. And I think you mentioned direct support stuff. It's to help build our network of self-direct or of direct support professionals in the state, or HTS. So we've heard data from a lot of provider agencies across the state that they've had more applicants than they've ever had this past quarter while we've launched these. So we're doing a lot of work across the board to not only help families who are waiting get what they need, but once they come on, to also be able to provide the services that they need when they need them. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, we've launched 2 large-scale recruiting campaigns around careers as direct support professionals to address the national workforce crisis. DSPs really fill a vital role by providing support and services to people with developmental disabilities and aging Oklahomans, people with disabilities transitioning from the community to care facilities. It's really a critical job, and we're doing a lot to support these professionals through 2 big initiatives, one of which is where they can earn up to $3,000 by doing the work they're already doing, because we appreciate it, through a recruitment and retention program known as DSP Plus. And we've also launched a Call to Care campaign that's a statewide advertising campaign on social media, traditional advertising, billboards, you name it, it's probably out there. And it's to raise awareness about these career opportunities and how fulfilling the work can be to work with people with disabilities. And we're really trying to strengthen that workforce so that when families come off the wait list and onto our services, they have immediate access to the services they are looking for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I know the department is cognizant of always looking at ways to better support those direct support professionals and provide them with better wages as well. Well, would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely. Wage increases were part of our rate increase that came in 2022, which also came with the ability to tackle that waitlist initiative. And I know that there are many things in the works to try to make sure that rate increase goes up again. And those $3,000 incentives that we've done this year are to help kind of bridge that gap and provide some of that financial support, because it is an underpaid position, but we are doing what we can to make that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, I'm also curious to ask you about any resources that the department offers that people may not know about that they should, but what are your thoughts there?
You know, the one that comes to mind would just be our FSAP program, which is a family support assistance payment. It's as we're serving more and more children than we ever have, because normally people when they were on the wait list would have to wait years for services and would normally be a little older when they came on, but we're serving more and more children. And this FSAP payment um, it's a payment monthly in addition to Social Security that helps families kind of use money as they need it. It's grown a lot in popularity because of its flexibility. So that's a really big draw. So families can use it uh, for pharmaceutical needs, for doctor's appointments, for whatever it is that they need as they need it. So that monthly money they can count on and the flexibility it comes with has been a big draw. And not a lot of people know about it, but it is growing in popularity.
Yeah, it's certainly important. And my friend, I'm curious to ask you uh, two formal uh, two formal questions before I get to the fun stuff. And the first of those final two, buddy, is about how I continue a commitment to, basic human dignity and making sure that people who use your services throughout the state, buddy, feel as though that they have a chance at basic human dignity and living a life of production and meaning. What are your thoughts there on how we continue to promote and advance basic human dignity throughout the state, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's really looking at each person individually. I think when you start dealing with a number like 5,100 people coming off the wait list, every one of those individuals has their own unique needs. They have their own story, their own struggles, their own passions and goals. And I think the more we can look at each person and help make their dreams come true and their opportunities that they want a reality, I think the dignity that comes with that and being able to pursue your own personal goals is just absolutely crucial. And I'm very proud to say that that's something DDS is working toward achieving. There's room to grow for sure, and there's room to improve, but I think we're headed in the right direction, and I think people will be very encouraged with what's to come.
Yeah, and my final sort of formal question before I ask you my last two is about your message to frontline managers about the importance of clear and concise communication and your greatest hope for the future of developmental disability services throughout the state. What are your thoughts there?
Well, having journalism backgrounds between us, we know the importance of clear and concise communication. I think it's easy for people to get bogged down in the governmentese about it, just the technical language. And many people that come to us are coming to us, like I mentioned, in a crisis situation, or they're in a place where they really, really are looking for support and for help. And I think making things clear and easy to understand and accessible, it just builds bridges of trust and accessibility that I think are at the core of making this a success for the agency and for families. We've seen a lot of this in what we've called regional family meetings, which are events we put on across the state for families whose names have been coming up on the wait list to come talk to DDS staff, talk to our providers, hear brief descriptions of each service that will be available to them. And we've seen families come in with a lot of questions and a lot of apprehension and leave just with a completely different shift in body language. Like they feel empowered, they feel informed, and it really has come just by answering their questions one-on-one, sitting with them at a table. What's important to you? What do you have questions about? And the strength of making that communication is really, really central to building that relationship. And I think that goes for not only DDS, but for provider agencies and for everyone else, is just to make sure that you are clear, because it can be a very, very confusing space to operate in.
Yeah, absolutely. And My friend, before I say goodbye to you, my friend, I want to have a little bit of fun with you, buddy, because I know that we're mutual Detroit Lions fans and that we live and die with the Lions every football season, my friend. So give me your forecast, buddy. Do you think they can complete the job and compete for the Super Bowl this year?
Thankfully, I think we're finally in a place where I can say yes. But I think that inner Lions fan in me is saying no, it's going to go off the rails. But I really I trust in Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and that whole organization. It's just so much different than the teams we've grown up watching. And like, I'm a Lions fan because of Barry Sanders. I'm in Oklahoma, and he played at Oklahoma State, which is where I went to school. And he's a legend. And growing up watching him, I'm a loyal sports fan. I could never break away. I'm a Lions fan for life. So to finally see what they've been able to put together and to be able to keep that talent too by extending like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Penei Sewell and keeping Jared Goff and even Ben Johnson, who could have left to be a head coach in the offseason, just keeping the whole core together. I really think they're on to something special. I think there are a lot of teams that are getting good fast, but like what the Bears and Packers are doing kind of scares me in the division. But I'm pretty encouraged, and I think I don't know, we're finally the king of the jungle. I guess that's a line.
Their advancement is reflected on their increased ticket prices. Okay, because
Yeah.
it's gonna get out of my budget pretty quickly, right?
Same here, same here. I'm pretty close to Dallas, so I may try to see them play the Cowboys, but I'm not sure I can afford a trip to the Motor City anytime soon to watch them play.
Well, not as expensive as tickets are, but we can still have the same experience at home, right? And we don't have to deal with all those people at the same time, right?
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. And my friend, finally, I want to give you a chance to answer the question that I end all my podcasts with, my friend, and that's about your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Ooh, yeah, that's a really good. It's a good one. I think I realized very early on in my career that if I wasn't passionate about what I was doing if my work didn't make a positive impact, then I wasn't going to be happy doing it. We spend a lot of our lives working. So finding something fulfilling and meaningful was critical for me, especially after my previous job was for a kind of a large for-profit company. And I just saw that difference there, and the value of that experience taught me that, doing something that matters really is important to me and the legacy I want to leave. So when I get things done for DDS, it's for the benefit of Oklahomans who need assistance. And whether it's what I post on the website or video script that I've helped write, an informational meeting like a regional family meeting that I've helped organize, if these things help families in need access services they need, or helps them better understand and feel empowered through what can be a complicated and overwhelming process, then I think I've done my job and I can feel good about it. I want my professional legacy, I guess, to be not one defined by how much money I can make, but how much of a positive impact I can make.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about the Benjamins, but it's about the impact, right?
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely. My friend, just before I ask you how people can get in contact with the department, I'm curious because when I was in Oklahoma, I was struck by the spirit of Oklahomans and how much they love football. By the way, okay,
Yes.
but I'm curious to ask you about the spirit of Oklahomans and why you're proud to live and work in Oklahoma. What do you have for me there, my friend?
Yeah, well, you're spot on about the football. I'm a Cowboy myself, but the Sooners are a big deal too. But as a native Okie, I have great pride in where I've come from. Oklahoma is often overlooked. A lot of people refer to it as a flyover state, but I think that attitude kind of only strengthens the resolve of the people who live here and creates a closer bond where I think we genuinely do take care of our neighbors and look out for one another. There's a thing called the Oklahoma Standard, which is a popular term for how Oklahomans respond to crisis situations, like from the Oklahoma City bombing, the Murrah bombing, through some of the severe tornadoes that we've had over the years, where Oklahomans really do join together side by side and kind of lift one another up during hard times. And I find that to be true just in general. Oklahomans help each other, and it's kind of just in our nature. I think Oklahoma may be overlooked in a lot of ways, but I think for anybody who spends some time here and talks to people and has an open mind, I think people would come away impressed by how Oklahomans treat one another, maybe except for football games. So for me, it's a privilege to work somewhere where I get to be a direct part of helping people who need it, because I think that's really, really central to what Oklahomans do for one another.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the spirit of competition brings out the best in everybody in terms of the football, right?
That's right.
Absolutely. And the passion as well. It's important to find passions in life, isn't it?
It is. And college football is just, yeah, it's very much in the fabric of the state as well, because we didn't have a professional sports team until the Thunder about 14 years ago. So, yeah, college sports it brings out the best in people and sometimes a little bit of the worst. But I love it. I love it.
Well, as two journalists, my friend, we could have a separate podcast about the future of college football, but that'll be a discussion for another day, my friend. And I'm curious to finally ask you, Ryan, if people want to get connected with you personally or the department, my friend, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that would be tell DDS. So TELLDDS at okdhs.org. That's a great place to reach us with any questions that you have or any help you're looking for. And we monitor that all the time. So we're very, very quick to respond to that. So I think, yeah, tell DDS at okdhs.org is a great way to get a hold of us. I'd be happy to hear from you.
Fantastic, my friend. And I want to thank you for engaging in the spirit of a conversation about inclusion, employment, and disability services, my friend. You're setting the standard at Oklahoma for other states and regions to follow. So I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this morning. It's most appreciated.
Well, you're setting quite a high bar yourself, and so I appreciate you having me and happy to do it anytime.